Peace, 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 everyone. Greetings from I New Life Global Ministries. I am Achoti Yaffe. Welcome to everyone on Clubhouse. Welcome to everyone in the digital world on Facebook and YouTube. I think, and that's where we are. Give thanks to the Most High. This is the beginning of our next cycle of 7. So we're going to go through these 6 yoms, these 6 eras until we get to our next cycle of rest. And speaking of cycles, that's what we're going to be talking about and how we're tested. This is a test. So I'm going to go right to some of the questions. What's a test? So that I'm going to put that question up. Producer is going to put that question up in the chat as folks file in. And we're going to wait for folks to file in. And so that's going to be the question. So as you come in, you can answer the question, what is a test? So while you do that, I'm going to just give you a little bit of backstory, as I like to do. Peace, Achoti Yaffe. I'm going to give you a little backstory to why and how this came about. Peace, Master Menulek. Peace, peace on Clubhouse. Let me know, because y'all know I'm Clubhouse Challenge. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know. Just, put some ones and twos in the chats for those of you who are on Clubhouse. So like I said, the question is, what is a test? So while y'all do that, I'm opening the space. Give thanks to the Most High for this next six. Give thanks to Chief Yuya for allowing us to deliberate what we know and correct it if it was wrong when we're sharing it live with all these people on the internet. And so back to what is a test? So that's the question. So for those of y'all on Clubhouse, what is a test? Loud and clear. Give thanks. Amen. Kira Eden. What is a test? And you can answer it, in one word or a sentence. And also, I would say give an example of a test, like a test that you've probably experienced personally, right? Or something that you've witnessed. So what is a test? And if you don't have something that you've experienced personally, which I doubt, I'm sure we all have, even pulling something from scripture so we can get this conversation started, this build started. And as you do that, like I said, I'm going to give you like a backstory. So why we did this, why this came about. And it really is because, this is the time of Ramadan. As we learned from Chief and also the sisters who presented on our Anu Fellowship on Yom Shishi, we know that the vernal equinox or the spring equinox is that midway point in the time of darkness. The year is split. If you go to Chief Yuya's segment on the spring equinox, there's 2. Actually, there's 3, but we put up 2 in the blog. It's from 2017, but it's still very relevant. And he gives us the definition of equinox, down to its Latin affixes, right? And that's also on the blog post from Last Strong. You can put it there. You can go check that out, called the spring equinox. And it's equal night, right? Because it is the point where the Earth's axis, the Earth is equal time of day and equal time of night. Because when we are in the period of darkness, which is the winter solstice, you have more time where it's dark, so more nighttime, right? I'm trying to simplify it as best I can. And when it's the summer solstice, and that time of light, you have more daylight, and we always look for that. Even when we think about things like seasonal affect disorder, right? How we get depressed or sad, in the darker months because it's so dark, rather than thinking about that time to go in and use that time to detox so that when that light period comes around, that cycle of light, we can step into who we truly are, right? Or step into that renewed person with that renewed mind. I'm just going to go to the chat really quick, and excuse my fingers because I switched around the iPad, whatever this thing is called, and now you're going to see my fingers as I scroll through the chat, my big old hands. Peace, Imanaya. Peace, Sovereign Eats. Peace, Margie Marie Art. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you for joining. So, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and spread this message so people can get this food. Peace, peace, and beautiful day to all of you as well. So so we have these times. So in these two different cycles, the cycle of light, cycle of dark, there are they also have midway points, and that's where we get the equinox and the equal night. So there's equal times of day and equal times of night. So we've actually come through that midpoint in the cycle of darkness. So we had the winter solstice a few months ago, back in December 20th, 21st. And so now March 20th, around 5:49 Eastern Standard Time, we had our spring equinox. So we've passed through that midway point, and we are now approaching, the cycle of light, right? So this is the time where we can detox, right? We're in Ramadan also. So Ramadan falls within this dark part of the year where we can use that time to detox our bodies. There's fasting, but it's not just about food, right? Fasting from, deleterious behaviors and things that will put us in places where we don't need to be. Fasting from, actions and activities. Fasting from old, immature, ways of thinking and emotional immaturity. So those are the things that we should be charging ourselves to do, so that we can come through again, like with renewed mind. And excuse the sound, it is a thunderstorm has decided to begin. So if you hear some background noise, that might be what it is. And let me know if the Dorito monster has showed up on YouTube and Facebook. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but we'll try. So I'll get to the chat with some of your answers. And I see Naya says, a test is something that measures your ability to do something. My first Anu fast and Ramadan observance was a test. Passing a CDL test are examples I'm thinking of. LOL. Yeah, good examples. Really good examples. Margie Marie R says a test, something given to measure strength, behaviors, and or knowledge. Really good answer. Yeah. And feel free to use the Googles. It's fine because we're gonna talk about it. Because I did. And so this is what I found when it comes to a test, similar to what you have, Margie Marie Art, a procedure intended to establish, quality, performance, or reliability of something, especially before it's taken into widespread use, right? So, if there's a product, it goes through quality checks or quality testing to make sure that it can stand the test of time or be something that customers and users would like, So this is where you have people who do they call them UX researchers, so user experience researchers. So they're testing out websites and things to make sure that they work, so that when you approach a website, it's for the most part as user friendly or intuitive as possible, depending on what it is that you're using. A test, like you said, even a CDL, like looking for your CDL license. I am studying for my PMP certification. So, things that will put you in the next level, right? A trial or an experiment. What's the other thing about a test? It can reveal your strength or your weaknesses, or, your superpower or your kryptonite. These are the things about the test. And so how we approach it, whether we're in a cycle of light or cycle of darkness is really key. And so when we think of cycle of darkness, a lot of the times it's like, oh, woe is me, this is sad. And, sometimes that may be true, but it's like, how do you use that to gestate, right? So that you're born fresh and new into something else. So I do want to, put this and say that we're going to do a two-parter. So this is going to be the first. I'm going to join you next strong for the midday affirmative. Just our schedules got moved around a little bit, and so we're actually going to do a two-part midday affirmative. So we're going to focus on the cycle of darkness for this one, and the next strong we'll go into the cycle of light. And so for the cycle of darkness, I wanted to pull in some of the studies that I've been moving through, using Job as an example, right? Let me go to the chat really quick. Aquia Visa says a test, a way of proving yourself. Yeah. Sometimes one's trust is tested in situations when it's a challenge to follow the record. Ooh, that's so good. I'm say it again for people in the back. Put it up on the screen. Sometimes one's trust is tested in situations when it's a challenge to follow direction. So there's this thing, a lot of times like people say, oh, I have trouble trusting people. But really it's just because I want to do what I want to do. It's not that you have trust issues. You just want to do what you want to do. You don't want to follow directions, right? And it's you because you're thinking like, oh well, you're gonna lead me down the wrong path. And that happens a lot with women. Here in our new women are submissive and receptive to what the man has to say. So a lot of times when we're getting instruction or direction, if it's not followed to the T, it's because like, yeah, deep down inside we don't do what we want to do. Because it's nature, right? It's what Eve or Hawa did in the beginning. She did what she wanted to do. And she's like, oh, he told me that you did what you wanted to do. So that's a really good point, Iman Akuya. Margie Marie R says a person's loyal, and I'm reading this also because I know clearly, like those of you who are on YouTube, like, why are they always reading? There are people who are actually not viewing; they're looking at it on Clubhouse. They're listening to it on Clubhouse. So just for some parity's sake, we try to make sure that everybody can hear what's being said and shared. So Margie Marie Art says a person's loyalty can be tested. That's a good one, right? I have a tendency to ignore Clubhouse, so I'm gonna go. Helping people. Chief says helping people to approach living for. Oh no, that's your thing. I don't think you. And if you raise your hand on Clubhouse, yeah. Okay. There we go. I think I invited whoever's raised their hands on Clubhouse. I think. I see the hands up. Oh no. Master Menulet says an attempt to verify correctness, strength, or quality of something. I ain't said nothing. I thought I saw your hand up. My bad. Is it? Okay. I don't know. All right. I thought I saw a hand up, but maybe not. Okay. I don't know. If it is, like, please raise your hands again because I'm not seeing how to bring you in. There we go. Okay. Okay. Peace, greetings, Chief. Welcome. I'll pause if there was something you wanted to add right away. If not, I'll keep going. I'm looking down. Okay. No? All right. Peace, Safta Hava. Welcome. So, so pulling on the story of Job, and not like, I know last time we did the story of Ruth and we went through Ruth, from beginning to end, but Ruth is a short story. It's 4 chapters. Job is pretty long, so we're going to have to sum it up, right? And some of it we may get to next strong. But when it comes to thinking about tests, it's a test, right? This is a test. And that cycle of darkness. It's important to note that Job, the story of Job, it actually starts off explaining like the light, right? So it starts off with his family, giving us and some insight into his family. Like literally, it's like, there was a man from Uz, a man named Job. He was called Job, and he was from Uz, and that's important because, and it's spelled, transliterated in English. It's spelled usually UZ, but it's Uz because it's Aleph, Vav, Sadi, Sofi. So it would, and Sadi is more like a t sound, like a TS sound, right? So it's Uz, and it's important. It's really key because Job was not an Israelite. He was from Uz, which means he was a descendant of Esau, which means he was actually an Edomite. But the interesting thing about Job, he definitely was Hebrew because he followed the way. And when we read further in Job, Yah is saying about him like this, he's awesome. He is upright. He's righteous. He's upstanding. He's reverent. He does all the things that he's supposed to do. And it made me think, and when I was studying this with some sisters last night, it was like, what were the children of Israel doing? And I was just thinking, probably in one of our cycles of debauchery. Like, what is happening? To the point where it's like this person who's not even, of the children of Israel. He is the descendant of the one who had his birthright stolen, Esau. Even though he did go and marry a Canaanite, and I said, don't do that. You did what you wanted to do. He's not even a descendant of Jacob. He's a descendant of his twin brother. But he's upright and upstanding and reverent in every way. He was perfect. And so this is why we hear the story of Job. And so I thought that was really important to note, because it kind of goes back, and I think Chief has touched on it before, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. I think I said that right. And so, it's not always going to be this, just because phonetically look like a melanated person, that, you're not going to be included, or caught up, So look at Job. And I wasn't there. We don't know exactly what Job looked like. That's not the point. My point is, he was not a part of the children of Israel, in the congregation of the children of Israel. Peace, Dr. Gertrude. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Peace, peace, peace. I want to make sure I'm not. Peace, Aki Isaiah. And Akuya Bisa says, if you study Bereshit, you'll find Eve was challenged in the area of obedience. Yeah. So it opens up with his family. And here's the thing, family, this is why I thought it was key. And I'm like, this is why I think it opens up with light. Because family is key. It talks about how he has 7 sons and 3 daughters. So he has 10 children. 10 children. Then it goes, and he's got like 11 oxen. And that's just, he's got thousands, and he has an estate. Thousands of oxen and goats and whatever else kind of flesh animals they had, back then. He's got it all. Sheep, whatever it is. You name it, he's got it. He was like Big Willie in Oops. He was Big Willie Oops. And this was something to be, awed, because it was not, something that, everybody had. Like, this was a thing. So, like, we read a little bit further, and here's the interesting thing. The other thing, we know, like, Elohim is what? I'll wait. Elohim is what? For those of you who are new, we've been studying the Hebrew. What is the Elohim? And while I do that, I'm just going to check Clubhouse while I wait for y'all's answers. Peace, Akizak. Peace, Achoti Yamina. Give thanks for joining. Peace, 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 peace. Okay. All right. Nothing yet? Nothing? Elohim. Y'all know it. What is Elohim? Elohim, the powerful ones. The powerful ones. And it also, there's that on it, which indicates plural, right? So it's not just one. It's a council, as we know. So in Job, it literally talks about a council being called, right? And producer, there's the Anu family. The reason why, let me back up a little bit. The reason why I started out with acknowledging how Job starts off in the light and it talks about his family is because in Anu, we know that family is the most important thing, right? It's the most important decision that you'll ever make. And so it's not something, it's a covenant that you don't enter into lightly. So this is the other reason why that part, and that, because this is the second verse in Job, why it stood out to me. It gives you right there in the beginning, like what the most important part of this is. So now we're, it says like the sons of the Elohim. Oh, we missed that part, but go ahead and put it up. I had already said that. Come on, producer. Come on, get it together, producer. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his land. So that goes back to the part where I shared that Job was an Edomite. He was not I was about to say Israeli. He was not an Israelite. But again, so we're reminded in Deuteronomy, like, don't be funky, don't be salty, because these are your cousins. Don't be salty with these people. These are your cousins, and the other ones helped you out, right? So we get these small reminders in precepts all throughout scripture. And it's important that we don't read, some of these stories and occurrences and things that are happening in a bubble, but realize how they're foreshadowing and prophecies of other things that are happening all throughout the Tanakh and even in the Greek Testament. So the sons of the Elohim are called to the council. So I thought this was really important because I was like, well, wait a minute. I always thought that this was just Yah and the devil having a conversation, having a bet almost like, I bet you I can get him to do this, and it's not. They came, to speak, about like whatever. And so in that, this is where we get the second mention of Satan. This is the second mention of the word Satan or Satan is used in scripture to describe a son of the Elohim, because why would he be there? This was a council call. And Yah, now this is the council, but then Yah says to him, when you coming from? Where you been? Like, it's whence thou comest? The devil wasn't even there. And see, and this is the thing. We always put, and I did this. It was like, I thought it was the devil. But there are all these different names, right? Even if we think about in Genesis, the word used specifically is not devil, it's not Satan. It says serpent, and in Hebrew, the word used is nakosh. It's the nakosh. Very different from when we see in Job, it says Satan. So that means this is different people. So, but then what we learn when it's, churchified, we learn like it's the devil, and that's why he got all these things. He's the adversary, and Satan does mean the adversary, but Satan and devil are not the same thing. That's not what the words say. This is why Chief always says it's important, like that we read scripture and know what it is in its original language, because what we have is like been translated and transliterated through several different languages: Greek, then Roman or Latin. Sorry, Greek, Latin, and then then English. So it's important to know like what the original word says. So I was like, this is someone totally different. This is actually a son, and the adversary, because he was contradicting and wanted to be contrary to what Yahweh was saying. Like, Job is my dude. He's upright. And he's like, well, yeah, he's upright because look at all he got. And this is interesting because even when I remember like listening to, sermons on the story of Job, it does a lot of the time, like, it'd be like, have faith in the Lord, because you'll get all these things. But that's not what it should be. We should be righteous just to be righteous. Have faith because we should have faith, not because it'll get us stuff. So then we think about like even how we approach the dark cycle, right? And we're in this cycle of Ramadan. It's like, well, I and I'm guilty of this. Like, I'm gonna fast because I'm gonna be thinner afterwards. That's not why we should be doing it. Yeah, it's a plus, but it should be done because the whole goal is to detox. The whole goal is to move closer to the Most High. The goal is to be intentional and set goals, that you reach at the end, not to gain something materialistic or physical at the end. Those things will come, but that's not the point. Right. And we're never really, told like that those things aren't the point. They're used a lot of the times in messages as the carrot. You'll get this, so then it's like, are we really doing things because it's really in our heart, right? Or is it because I'm doing this because I'll get X, Y, Z out of it, right? So it's like, is that how we should be spending this time of like detoxing, or this time of like kind of gestating to make sure that we're coming out nice and clean on the other side, right? So I'm going to open it up. I don't really see much in the chat, but I'm going to open it up for those of you who may have something to say. I don't see anything really on Clubhouse. If not, I'm going to keep moving. But like, if you do, just raise your hand, jump in, say what, share, speak your piece. Say your piece if you want. Okay. But yeah, so the Satan, the adversary, is like, he's only this, but he's only faithful because you do favor him. You do give him all this. Look at his kids, look at his family. They feasting every night. And, he's got, all these sons to carry on his line. He's got like, almost all the cattle in the county, whatever it is, who wouldn't be faithful? Who wouldn't, drop to their knees every night and give thanks to you, right? And Yah's like, that's not why he does it, and he's like, well, let's put it to the test. And it's important to know that Job was so faithful. He was praying for his children. Even I think it's verse 5, Job 1:5, where he's like, just in case, they may have cursed God in their hearts, because they are having fun. They're feasting. They're reaping the benefits of the life that their father has provided for them. The life in the nation that he's building, in this grand estate that they live on. They all have their own homes, right? Which is how it should be. Like, I'm doing this, and I'm building this nation. I'm building this for a purpose. But and I'm going to stay reverent to the Most High, because that's how it should be, right? So even in that, he's like, giving offerings, burning offerings for his children in the event that they may have cursed God in their heart. So y'all is looking at this. It's like, he even praying for the kids. It's like, I pray for you, I pray for me. He's praying for everybody. We're not praying. He's giving offerings. He is acknowledging others. Margie Marie Art says Job was always taught in church. Yeah. It's definitely given in a manipulative way and can mess up how you view praying and your relationship with the Most High. Yeah. And until I was like, yeah, because they just kind of skip over a lot of what happens, in Job, and just puts it on all the material, really focus on all the material things, and not like kind of the cycle of emotion and all those things that were happening. Like even the conversation he has, with his friends, when they come and say, you must have done something wrong. When all things break loose, you must have done something wrong. He's like, I'm innocent. I have not done anything. I don't know why. This is upsetting. He is like going through this period of grief that's just like, just really, really hard to like read about. Like, yeah, we'll get into it. But he goes through it, right? And again, like the point was to bring out, like, this is not, we shouldn't be detoxing and fasting and being reverent in this cycle of darkness, so that when we do come into that light space, it's because we're going to have this, and this. It shouldn't be about what you're going to gain. It should be, do it because you're supposed to do it. Because we're supposed to be upright. Because we're supposed to be upstanding. We're supposed to be reverent. That's why that's what we were created for. That's what our purpose is, right? So that's why it should be done. So then his riches get depleted. And this is like how we go through challenges. We go through tests. But, he doesn't necessarily know it's a test. So, like, as humans, our human minds are like, why is this happening? Like, there has to be like cause and effect. Something must have happened. And in many cases, like practically, like that's very true. But then there are some cases where we might be tested by the Most High, but we may not know, right? And producer, tell me if I'm moving too fast, because I know I sometimes like move a little bit fast. Sorry, go ahead, Chief. Okay, give thanks. So Job's riches get depleted. This is and the way it happens is really interesting. So go for this ride with me, because as I was reading, I was like, this sounds familiar. So it happens like back to back. He's in the house talking, having a conversation. Somebody come in, boom, busting the door. Oh my God, the field. And now this is not necessarily in order, but it's like, this is gone. The fields are gone. Your kids done blew up. Somebody came and killed them. And I'm the only one left to tell the story. And then before he even finishes, the Chaldeans and the Sabians came and cut up and burnt up the sheep and took the rest. All your flock is gone. But I'm the only one that survived the whole attack. It ain't my fault. Next one comes in. The house done blew up. The winds came from all four directions and everything's gone. What is he supposed to do? Okay. What is he supposed to do? It's like you get into this, it's almost like a cycle of like, that puts you in a way of like functioning in a way of being used to getting bad news. Like you just like hearing like just negative thing after negative thing, right? So I'm gonna let producer put up the slide. Go ahead. Behind the scenes, producer, put up the slide. Not that one. That's the one for after. But I'll move forward. It's okay. Um, so it made me think of, like, as we were talking, I was speaking with one of the sisters the other night, and she was like, it's kind of like you get into this way of functioning based on all the things that are happening. So then your behavior and your responses are modified. Um, you're modified based on like how all the things that are happening. So as this was going on, as I'm reading this, like the part where it's like, and the winds came from everywhere, and the house, blew up. Not necessarily in those words. Everybody knows I'm not the best paraphraser, but you can go read the story. And it made me think of the Three Little Pigs. It's just like, the house of sticks and the house of straw are like the material things. They can get just whipped up and burned down and blown away, huff puff, in a heartbeat without anybody taking a second look. Like, because they're so transient, they're so temporary that they don't matter. The house of, it's okay. It's okay. It's the, they can go away in a minute, right? But then when we come to that house of brick, it's indicative of foundation, something that's stronger. And the only thing that's lasting is your faith in Yah and how you move in your relationship with the Most High. Wow. Did y'all catch that? I said the Most High. I don't know what happened. There's people sending me messages. I can't read them all. Margie Marie R says, sometimes we can be tested and not even realize. Ooh, girl, wait, we get there. We'll get there. But yes, very, very true. Very, very true, right? And so, like, so I thought about, like, like the Three Little Pigs and, like, huff and puff and blow your house down. And it's like, like the straw and the sticks is just, the stuff that doesn't matter. You have to go where the foundation is brick, and who lays that? When we go back to like family, who lays that? It's the man. The man is the knowledge, that foundation that lays that. And Chief said, I did not copy the quote to put in the chat, but you need the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. I think he said the understanding is like the kickstand or the tripod that holds up the knowledge and the wisdom. Like it's an equation, right? And if you don't, it's like in math, like if you don't understand or complete the equation, you're not going to get the right outcome. So that house of brick is really, really important. Or having that brick or brick foundation, or that solid foundation, is key. So now I wanted to ask another question. When we talk about, this, like the test. And so this goes back to Margie Marie Art's comment about like not even really knowing that we're tested, and thinking about how these external forces kind of move and push us in these ways, right? And thinking about like sabotage, because that's what Satan he did. It was sabotage. So that was right. So how have you responded to external sabotage or events that external events, right? And even like a secondary question, like as you guys are putting in your answers, were you even able to discern whether it was a test or not? So we'll go back and forth between those questions. So how have you responded? And it's key. The key word in there is responded. How have you responded to external sabotage or external events? And then, were you even able to discern and decipher, whether it was a test or not, right? And so what are some examples? So while those things are coming up in the chat, we talked about some examples. And one of the sisters was like, well, Saul and David. At every turn, Saul was trying to like sabotage David. And even in Chief's build on a woman of good understanding, he was on the run from Saul. Like, Saul was just trying to get him at every single turn. When it comes to Sarah and Hagar, and maybe that's not even one that we might think of, but Sarah and Hagar. Like Sarah tried to sabotage her. Like first you realize like you laughed at y'all. Let's not forget that. She laughed when y'all's messenger said, "No, you're gonna have a baby." She's like, both her and Abraham laughed, right? And so she's like, I'm gonna take these measures on my own. You go and have you go and take my maid servant and let her give you a baby. So she did that. Hagar did all of that. Abraham and everybody went along with the plan. So now when you have your child, it's like, well, I don't want him to be, above my baby because she's just a maid servant. So I'm gonna go sabotage whatever his inheritance. Get them out of here. And yes, we know that Hagar was acting a funky. She was being foolish because she technically was supposed to hand over that baby to Sarah, and she didn't do that. So instead, it's like, and so that's what we get into self-sabotage. So we'll get into that after y'all answer the question, because I don't want to think it's like, oh, it always comes from the outside, because that's how we get caught into victimhood. Sometimes it's self-sabotage, and we have to be able to discern those things. So Sarah and Hagar, right? Jacob and Rebecca. Go ahead. Sorry.
You know what I mean? We Sarah and Hagar, right?
No. What? That was just one example. Go ahead.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't want to cut your wisdom. I didn't want to break into the example.
Oh no, I was just moving to another one, but go ahead.
Okay, so don't be giving me no orders either.
Sorry.
So the self sabotage. Not self. I'm sorry. The external sabotage question. For the most part, I just keep moving. The external forces that come to like kind of block the path or whatever. It's very similar to what Satan does in this particular story. You know what I mean? And oftentimes that what we see as an intrusion or what we see as an interruption to what we're doing is actually necessary for our ascension, for our evolution. So no one becomes great in comfort. It just doesn't happen that way. So when things come to kind of stare up and trip up and things like that, that's sometimes it's really a good sign. And oftentimes it is your ego, and your ego can project itself externally to the point that it seems like things are coming from the outside in.
Yep.
But how else would you be a better person? When you read the book of Job, it says that Job was the greatest man. He was the greatest of all the men of the East. So the East represents ascension. It represents evolution. It represents knowledge. So this means that Job was a person who was he was at a stage where it's like, all right, now it's time to take you to the next level. Because you're the greatest man of the East. You're the greatest man of knowledge. So now we have to take you beyond knowledge, and it's very similar to Adama and Hawa in the garden when they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It was knowledge. So okay, now so Job being the greatest man of knowledge, the greatest man of East, when Satan comes in with that sabotage, if you will, I don't even think it was sabotage, honestly, but
okay.
When Satan comes in with that, what he's doing is he's precipitating a situation and a process so that Job can evolve to the next step. Just like he precipitated a process, Enki, when he was a serpent in the garden, he precipitated a process where Adoma and Kawa could evolve to the next step of humanity. So I look at people trying to sabotage my situation the same way, man. I'm a bull. I just keep pushing through. Like, you can't do nothing to me, man. And even if you do a little something to me, it's not going to do anything. It's only going to make me more of what I am. You're only going to make me do more of what I was already doing, because I'm going to evolve. As someone who comes from the martial arts world, you get sometimes, especially when you're starting out, you mess up your hands a lot. You mess your wrists up, you mess your fingers up, you stub your fingers on stuff and things like that. But the thing about it is that I never had a problem with that. Like when that would happen, it's painful, especially when you jam your finger or something, because it always comes back stronger because the bone builds more calcium around that joint that was wounded previously. So, if you get hurt through your healing, when you heal and come out on the other side, that now appendage or that part of you is actually better than it was than when it was injured. So I look at sabotage the same way. Like if you throw rocks at the chrome, so I just get better rims. No big deal. Because I know you are there to precipitate the incarnation of my soul to a higher plane off of this particular space of consciousness. I mean, that's my answer.
Give thanks. And that actually answers like the other, like, are you even able to decipher? And it's like, maybe it doesn't even matter because you realize it's all a test. It's all a test to ascend you to the next level. And what is really important or key is your response. Because if you respond in a way that is negative to your growth or impacts the growth, then it is self-sabotage because you haven't responded or we have not responded correctly. Go ahead, you may carry Eden. Oh no, I thought I saw you on mute. Oh yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I did. Number one, this is a really, really, really thought-provoking topic. So thank you for bringing it forward. I so wanted to get in and say something before Chief did. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to say, I was thinking a small fraction of some of what he touched on. I wondered about the idea of self-sabotage, right? Or sabotage, right, by external forces. And my thought was, well, when we say we're prepared for something, right, or we're preparing or being prepared for something, the only way to know if you actually have all that you say you've got is by being tested or evaluated, or there has to be some sort of assessment. And so as I was even thinking about, well, what do we get if we fail the assessment? Like if I connect the idea of sabotage as maybe the perception of failure, it's like, well, no, even in some instances, if you're able to get a lesson out of even the quote failure, was it really a fail? And I'm gonna share something. So I had been preparing for, well, I had been considering a particular certification for many, many, many years. So long that I would talk about it with my staff, and some of them would sit for the exam and pass it. And I recently sat for it, and I did not pass. And one part of me felt like, I can't believe I didn't pass this. I failed. Like, I can't believe I failed. But as I walked out of the exam center, I'm like, well, you know what? I finally took it. Like, I finally took it, and now I know which areas I need to strengthen. And now I know where I don't need to stress studying so hard because I knew that, I was really proficient in certain areas. So I would say that a lot of times, to me, it would seem that it's really about the perception, like what we walk away with, whether we're able to receive that lesson or not. Particularly maybe when there are external forces trying to create a failure scenario for us. It's like, do you allow that thing to now stop you? Or that, that one heckler to kind of push you off the stage, right? And say, oh, I'm just never going to pursue this, my comedic career again because this one person just wouldn't let me be great. Or do you take it to say, all right, now I'm prepared. This is how I can respond the next time. So that was what I wanted to share as far as that idea of external, that external saboteur. Is it really even that, or do we want to allow it to become that based on our response?
Right. Give thanks. Exactly. And that's why I said, like, the key to the first question was response. And even in Chief's response, he was like, I'm a bull. I just keep moving through. So the response is like, I'm not letting that deter me. I have a goal at the end, right? And he also said something very key, which is the part of like your external sabotage or these events or whatever. They're actually reflections of whatever's going on inside. We learned, and I knew it's like the external is just a reflection of the internal. So what's going on the inside that's causing all these things to come to you, right? And then how many times, like when we have that response, it's fear, which can also be sabotage in and of itself. Like another example of like the that I was going to give of the external sabotage, because it could even be Jacob and Rebecca, when they was plotting for him to get the birthright instead of Esau. It's like, y'all already told you what was going to happen. Nobody told you to interfere, just like Sarah. Nobody, your mama-in-law, nobody told you to interfere in what the plan is. You keep interfering with the plan is, and you're sabotaging it. You're going to sabotage people, and you end up sabotaging yourself, right? Because then now Jacob has to go into exile and live with his uncle. I mean, he figured it out while he was there, but like he's in servitude for like 14 years, couldn't get out. So, how many times?
But even the idea.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. But even
the idea of the servitude, it's funny because I was thinking about that. Like he went seeking one wife and wound up with the older sister, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like even in that scenario, he could have allowed Laban, the father, he could have allowed that to sabotage, like to thwart his
plan. He could have.
And he could have just kind of walked away with his head hung low and said, I'm just going to leave.
Right.
Like, I don't work hard. What was it, 7 years? I don't work 7 years to get who I really thought I wanted, but I wound up with the sister. So forget it. You're such a, you're such a liar that I'm just going to leave. And that would have deterred him. Like that would have set his path in a completely different direction. But it's like that would have been him succumbing to whatever that narrative is inside of himself, right? That would say, well, let me just walk away, as opposed to, no, I came for what I came for. I saw her before anything else, and I'm not going to leave without it.
Right.
And so it's like a level of determination, and I think that would even connect to what you were sharing about Job. But I can't hear the name Job without thinking of chief breakdown of it really being job.
Right. Right.
When we call it that and we think of it like that, think about what he did. The examples of how he was on his job. Right?
Yeah.
On his job.
Yeah.
In that way. And how we're charged to be that, no matter what's being thrown at us.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I was playing around like, maybe we'll call this Get a Job. I don't know. Well, this would be Get a Job Midday Affirmative. But what made more sense was this is a test. Because here's the other interesting thing about Job. We know that there were no J's. There are no J's in Hebrew. So it actually was Iyov. Iyov. So, and it means hated. And so I was like, this is a story. So this story, and we don't know who told this story first. It's clearly not in the first person. So this is somebody who was made aware of the story. It could have been one of the 4 friends that visited him. I don't remember their names. The only one I remember for some reason is Elihu. But it could have been any one of them telling this story. Or it could have been like even a fourth hand story being, shared down. Like, this is what happened. Like, he must have been hated because one of the things that the friends were telling him, like, you must have did something for y'all. I hate you so much. And Eyob or Job, the way we say it is means hated. And so I'm like, this can't be his name. He was a righteous, upstanding man. Like, I love my child hated. Like, I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't there. So I don't know what his name actually was. But I was like, I don't know. But give thanks, Naya. Give thanks. Eyob was the name. So I'm like, that's just the word. It's describing like a function of or what's happening right now. Right. So what are the things that come out of, the self-sabotage? And you gave a really good example, taking an exam. I was like, how many times do we sabotage ourselves, like taking an exam, like by putting in like fear? I'm not saying that's what you did, in your care, Eden, but I'm saying like, kind of how we approach exams. Like I have one and I'm like, I have to remove this spirit of fear, that I'm taking on, because that may hinder me being able to move through the exam, Peace, Aki Isaiah. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And also, if anybody wants to join in, I'm trying to make sure I'm paying attention to peace, brother Mayuba. Peace, peace, Shirla. Master Manuel says the temptation to plagiarize is real. That could be some self-sabotage. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just put some quotation marks around it and cite it. Make sure you put your. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm like, that's just the fear of embarrassment. I'm like, don't do it. But that's a very real thing, and that could also be like a cause of self-sabotage, or to keep you in a cycle, instead of moving through. Like, cycles are made for us to move through, not to keep perpetually spinning, right? We're supposed to move through. But if you are, self-sabotaging, and you're getting in this cycle of fear, or even moving into chaos, like you're getting stuck and now you're just spinning. When we talk about the sabotage, there's a moment and how can we do that? There was a moment when Job, he did it was in Job 10. So that's the verse we're gonna put up in Job 10, where he internalizes what's happening, right, with him. And we'll put that up on the screen shortly. He internalizes what's happening with him. And in other places too, while we're looking for Job 10, like even in Job 33, like he goes through this, like, but I'm almost like I'm blameless, it's a Job 33 and 9. I'm clean without transgression. I'm innocent. Neither is there iniquity in me. This is like, when you're going to your parents, or to the, I didn't do nothing, but I didn't do nothing. And it's like, why am I going through this? But I didn't do anything, right? And so in Job's case, it was definitely a test. But in many cases, for us, it's like, maybe, it's a test, but like, how many times are we getting stuck in self-sabotage? How many times you actually did do something, and this is a reflection of your own response and behaviors? Okay, so I'm gonna leave that. I don't think she's trying to come on. If you are trying to come on, Achoti, just put your camera on and I'll know that you're trying to come on. If not, I know they're trying to fix something backstage. Right. So my soul is weary of my life. I will leave my complaint upon myself. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. So he internalizes this so much that he doesn't even want to be born. Like, most of chapter 3 is like him wanting to say, he's like, curse the day I was born. He never curses Yah. Throughout all of this, he never curses Yah. He curses himself. He curses the night. He curses the day. So some of it is like, well, you cursing some of creation, right? Because like, you were here because Yah wanted you to be here. So like, it's like, be careful. But he's moving in this way where it's like he's internalized all this hate and this anguish, or not hate, I'm sorry, grief and anguish. Peace. Thank you. He's internalized all this anguish, and it's like I don't even want to be here. Curse the day that I was born. You can put the verse back up. Thank you. My soul is weary of my life. Like, he's going through it. Like, this is why Job is so long. Like, this is chapters of him talking to his friends and literally going through all the emotions of grief. And when he says this, I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. I immediately, y'all know me, I'm Miss Ruth and Hawa. I thought of Naomi when she's going through her grief. And she's like, call me Mara, and this is that idea of like getting stuck and starting spinning in those cycles, and not being like how Chief said, be a bull and move through it. Realize like it's all a test, and the test is in your response, whether it is something that you brought to yourself and you have to figure out how to move through and be better, or it is something that is truly like an external force where you didn't do nothing. It's all a test. So move through it properly. So one example I wanted to bring up, and this is my own story, and talking about fear, right? And how when we're cycling through some of these things, how it can actually what's the word I'm looking for? Bleed off or leech off onto others. Like, what do we put onto others, right? Because we're moving through a cycle of fear because we have not stopped to gain knowledge and wisdom and then move into the understanding. The understanding is after you've responded and you're like, oh, now I know how this works. Now I know what to do next to make it better. So this happened a few years ago. This is pre-Anu. It's 2007. And I was working at a healthcare institution, and it had satellite buildings across like the Upper East Side, like between Midtown and Uptown, like in the 60s. So frequently, I would have to travel to the main hospital or main campus between that and my office and another satellite place where patients were seen. And so this is like a Friday, I think, maybe Thursday. I feel like it was a Thursday or whenever. You can actually Google it when I say what happened. And I'm coming back from the main campus from a meeting. And depending on the time of day, you hit traffic. It's New York City, you'll hit traffic, and especially depending on what streets you're taking. And so this particular institution had shuttles and jitneys that were free for employees that you could actually take between the satellites. And truth be told, when I stopped working there, but I was still moving around that area of New York City, I knew they had jitneys, and I was like, I don't feel like paying for a cab. And so I would just like jump on the shuttle. It is what it is. But these things can be like very helpful. So like we would hit traffic around, around the point where we had to turn around, because anybody who knows New York, like especially Manhattan, the streets alternate when going uptown and downtown. They alternate going north and south, and like to east to west. They're one ways, and then every now and again you have a main street that does go both ways, like 42nd, 34th. They go both ways, right? So we're coming down, so there's not like, so we have to turn around to come back up to so that the jitney can pull directly in front of the building. Because much like, it's a safety thing. Like, they're not going to open the doors to let you out a block before, or let you out a couple of feet before you get to the building, because like they let you out, you get run over by a bus, it's their fault. So just like in city buses, like, if you're not at the stop, they're not going to stop. If you hit the bell, then you got to wait till they pull up to the stop to get off, right? So we're caught in this traffic, everything seems fine. And then we get close, then it usually breaks up, and then we're able to come around, make the not UE, but like go around whatever roads we need to get to the direction that we need to be in to pull in front of the building. And for some reason, we hit traffic again, which was very unusual. So we're literally sitting a block away. And so blocks in New York City are different. So when you're going from east to west, east side to west side, the blocks are very long. That's when they talk about like New York City blocks, right? But when you're going up to down, the blocks are pretty standard. The walking is not that far. So we're sitting in front of the building on the next block. So I can literally see like the office building, the building where my office was. But I can't get out because they're not, going to let us out, and we're just sitting in traffic. So as we're sitting there, like I'm on the phone with my mother, it's irrelevant what we were talking about, but I'm on the phone with her for some reason. And I see this woman running through traffic. She's literally in the middle of the street. And, this is key, because this vision for me has always been the thumbnail for this memory. And it's interesting because I had forgotten about this story until earlier this strong. It literally popped into my head, and I don't know why, but I was like, maybe I was supposed to share it. So I'm sharing it here today. So the thumbnail for this story is this woman running through the street. She was melanin recessive, but and it's key because she had red hair. And it was like, and I saw it's like a shock of like red curly hair. And she was wearing a purple dress. And you know what? Achoti Maria, I was wrong. As I was like, I don't think, maybe her belt wasn't green. Maybe it was like orange or whatever, but it doesn't matter. She had on a purple dress. And I thought it may have been green, and of course I wouldn't have thought of this back then, but I know this now. Yes, it is a long story. Okay, I'm gonna get to the point. So she's running through traffic, and I'm like, why is this woman running through traffic? And she's got this look of fear on her face. And the next thing I see is more people running through traffic. It starts to increase. People just running through traffic. And then I see a car where we're all like sitting on this jitney, and a car is like vrooming on the sidewalk. People are jumping out of the way trying to get off the sidewalk. And now it hits us. There's this sound in the air, and it's like a whistling sound. So mind you, it's very, very loud. It's drowning out everything else. And it was getting progressively louder. So mind you, this is after 9/11. This is after the blackout. So there's this, like, how much more can we take, at least. Right. When one, listen. Listen. So as I'm on the phone with my mother, I'm describing to her the scene, and I'm getting increasingly nervous, and I'm starting to be afraid. And the woman in the driver's seat, she won't open the door. And it made me think, like, how much are you wanting to, how much more important is your job, right, than all of our lives, including yours, because we don't know what's going on. But clearly, we need to be going in the other direction. It's like, yes, get Lisa and them. You saw us running. So I literally approached this woman. I'm like, can you open the door so we can run? Like, just like, I don't even know where we were running to, what we were running from. But all I knew was just a lot of fear, and it infected me to the point where I ran. Chief shared a story in our study group the other night where he said someone said something to him, and it did something to him where he ran all the way home. I think you say you ran to Mount Vernon. I ran from 3rd Avenue and 42nd Street all the way to Penn Station. So I ran down 10 blocks and over several. Ran the entire way. By the time and on the way, I saw a bus, and like everybody sitting in traffic. So maybe about 4 blocks after I was able to get off the bus, like I'm still on the phone with my mom, and she's like, "What's happening?" And I'm like screaming in her ear. I don't know. The phone goes dead because I'm squeezing it so hard I break it. I see this bus, and I'm like, "Everybody gotta get off!" We gotta run. So I'm literally infecting them with whatever's going on in my head and my fear. And they start, and they're like, this lady, she's like, "All right, we gotta run." Everybody's running. And I noticed the further I get away from whatever it was, which we now know it was a steam pipe burst. And it was actually a really bad accident. It was like some sort of thing with the electric company, but it burst and actually created like a concave in the street. And I think someone did get seriously injured or maybe even transitioned from that. But it was like a 40-story high of steam, and that's what we were hearing. And like how it whistles through the building, it sounded like a plane. And so everybody was running because it's like we didn't know where it's like a canyon, being stuck in like a canyon. And so you don't know where it's coming from. And so there's literally like people running through the streets. It's almost like something out of a zombie movie. Like we're running through the streets. And then I noticed the closer I got to Penn Station, the more like less stressed people were, because they had no clue what was going on. So I'm walking up in the Penn Station, like breathing hard, like bending over, trying to catch my breath. My chest is about to my heart's about to burst out my chest. And I'm like, I'm getting on the first thing, smoking out of this town, and I just have to get out of here. But the point of the story was like all of that fear, like I took that and I infected other people with it. And now there's probably someone who's like remembering the story from their perspective, right? And it's like some crazy woman got on the bus and then we started running, what? And it didn't even need to be all of that. And all of that came because of how I responded to what was external to me, rather than like having a more mature and responsible response. And maybe somebody might say, but after 9/11, you don't know, you had to get out of there. There was still probably a better way to respond to that, and then not take that and infect other people with it. And the point of that is like when we responding to like a test or internal or external sabotage, like be mindful of how much we might leech that out, to other people, because when we move with a certain mentality, that's what becomes amplified. That's what we spread. I'm gonna go eat. And yes, Margie Marie, all right. When one person starts running, we all start running. I did start running. So yes, it was a long story to share. Like, don't spread your fear. Don't spread your fear, because it can just be bad for everybody. Because who knows? I could have caused a heart attack to someone who was sitting on that bus who wasn't able to run, and then be like, I'm just sitting on the bus by myself. Why? Because the bus dropped. Everybody got off the bus. I didn't even stop to look to see what I just like, get off the bus, and went about my business. Like, so who knows, like, what, could have been spread. Sovereign Eve says, I also try not to focus on perceiving it as an issue, but I try to focus on applying solutions based on instruction. As a woman, my ability to move through adversity is dictated by my head. And I didn't have a head. I was moving chaotically. Like, it literally was like, it was chicken without a head, moving like a crazy person. This story needs a Bailey's Award. I don't know what a Bailey's Award is, but okay.
You know what? That story, as I listen to that story, and let me know if you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
Thank you. As I listen to that story, I'm like, man, the only thing that's ringing in my head is responding with ability. Like, how, as you describe it, I'm like, wow, how irresponsible, right? And I'm not saying you, but like, of course, we all have examples of that, right? I would imagine most of us have examples of like flashbacks of, oh my God, my response was so fear-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from a place that really made no sense. That if I were to be called irresponsible, or if I would have created an environment where someone got hurt, I would have been called on the carpet, because my actions were not one of responding with ability, you know? And so I just kept thinking about, wow, look at responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you said that was a book, Maria, who stated that, like, as women, we respond based on the instructions provided by our head.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how you responded was based on what you had, right? Even acknowledging I was on the phone with my mother the entire time. So there wasn't even a head, perhaps, to call to even say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Because that response might have been, cool, just go get inside of the office building, or go, like, just go to this one location and sit down and try to ask, like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? Or, like, listen to the radio. You know, something really logical.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Something logical response.
Nope.
Instead of running a half marathon.
It was. And I was not in shape. So I could have absolutely had a heart attack. I could have hurt myself.
Okay.
It was bad. And the killer part is, when I told the story the next day, because everything, New York is like, all right, back to business. It was a steam pipe. Somebody got burnt. There's police lineup. Back to work, everybody. Back to your job, right? And I'm telling people the story, and they're like cracking up. Of course, you always laugh at stuff that was like pretty traumatic, but like, I actually had a friend who, at that time, like, she was, she currently is a licensed clinical social worker. So she was in school for that. And she looked at me, she was like, you did what? You went on the bus and you did what? She's like, that's not okay. She was like, you probably traumatized them. Like, I understand that you were afraid and like something was going on, but like, that's not cool. Like, and I was just like, but I was trying to save lives. Like, you actually probably put somebody else in danger. And it took me a while to like understand that, because I didn't want to accept it. Like, no, but I was helping people. And it's like, no, you actually spread trauma. That's what you did. That's what I did. And it's so interesting that I was like, that story didn't even pop into my head until this strong. And I was just like, I have to share this, but I don't even know how. But then, I had to figure out, like, okay, how does this relate? And it's like, well, your response was fear. in that cycle that you were in, and you were just spinning, and you just like, come spin with me, everybody, come spin with me. You know, even being on the phone with my mother because the phone went dead. I broke the phone so bad because I was squeezing. It had the buttons on the side got stuck and like dented it because that's how tight I was holding the phone. And she said the line went dead. So mind you, she's hearing me like from the time she said like, oh, get out and run. And I'm out in the street screaming and running. Then the phone went dead. So what kind of trauma and stress did I put on her? Because she couldn't do anything. She's across the river. What could she do? So how much, like, it was, I infected so many people. And again, like, even thinking how that looked like, like I said, like the zombies, right? So how many people did I infect? Like, I was infected, and then I helped spread infection. So we always have to be mindful of our responses to adversity or that test from the outside, which could also just be an indicative of what's going on inside, what we're amplifying. I wasn't moving in knowledge, wisdom, or understanding. It was pure chaos. Pure chaos. So, Sabrinit says, hey, vicarious trauma is real. And when we go through adversity, we panic or react irresponsibly, pushing others into fear. When women do this, we create chaos. Because the bus probably was chaotic. I mean, I remember one of the riders just said, all right, people, let's go. And they started filing off the bus. But I didn't even stay. I'm sitting there like, I'm saving lives, right? But why didn't I stay to see? It was like, no, we all got to, I'm running. So like, I told you, I did my due diligence. I told you I'm running, you know? And you know, and it's interesting because there's two sides to it. On one side, it could have been like, maybe I did help somebody. Maybe, you know, they did get away, maybe whatever. But again, we know now that it was, and we were like maybe a block or two away from where the pipe actually burst and caved in, but we were close, and that's why you could hear it so strongly, and that's why the traffic was all backed up. So we were adjacent to it, but still like not knowing what it was. But on the other hand, now that we know what it was like it wasn't really helpful at all, because they would have been fine just sitting on the bus. They would have been fine. I didn't go and sit and figure out what it was so that I could make, you know, a smart move. It was like, I'm just gonna, I would have been better off just running the half marathon and getting on the train and going home and not saying anything. That would have been the best thing to do. I'm going to open up. Peace. Thank you for joining as a listener. Does anybody have anything to add? Like any other story they want to share? Like what their response to the test was? All right. Go ahead. Coach Maria, I think you're on stage now. Maybe raise your hand again. I pressed it, but I don't see you. Try again. Try raising your hand again. I don't know. It's making me do things twice. No? Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, greetings, Margie Marie Art. So I'm gonna add you to the stream. Okay. Go ahead. Peace.
Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I think I'm sorry, it's lagging on my side, the video. But peace, everyone. How's everyone doing today on Saturday? Well, I'm sorry. I just wanted to speak on just having sabotage. I just thought about something when you brought up that was something that I learned actually last strong. Just thinking about sometimes having a mindset that be sabotaging. I brought up something last strong where I was talking about a saying that had always been taught to me just in my family, when we say, you know, nobody's perfect. And, you know, over time you I guess you realize like that way of thinking is really an excuse to not really change your behavior. And, you know, in the long run, you end up sabotaging a lot of lessons that, you know, you could have learned along the way because you're stuck in a mindset of, well, you know, I'm not perfect and, you know, you should yeah, shared this with me. And he said, you know, well, actually, that mindset was not really a good mindset to have, but that we should always be striving for perfection. And I think it goes back to like trying to find ways to find solutions to your issues or your problems, or, you know, instead of running away from it and just throwing up the towel and saying, well, I'm not perfect, you know, so it's okay. But, you know, I thought about that immediately when you brought up, you know, self-sabotaging and kind of self-sabotage ourselves from just growing in life, growing and self-developing. So that's
Yeah.
what I wanted there.
Give thanks. Yeah, and what you very it's I guess it's the same thing as that. Well, I'm only human, right? It's
Mm.
like, well, if I just rest in this base thing and say, well, this is what I am, it means like I'm cutting it off right here, and I'm laying down the line and say I'm not going another further, and I'm not gonna grow. I don't want to because I'm only human.
Yeah, you actually end up putting yourself in a box. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And you limit yourself. And I don't think that's the purpose of life. I don't think we're here to just stay stuck, you
No,
know? So,
no. And
yeah.
said in the command, grow, right? That's our tick. Grow. Hashtag grow.
There you go.
Good
Well,
thing.
thank you for letting me share that.
Of course, of course. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. I
Thank
see
you.
bees. I see several people with their, well, not several. I'm exaggerating. It was two. With their hands raised on clubhouse. If you don't mind, can you raise them again so that I can? Okay, awesome. I think Brother Mayuba, your hand was raised, so I am not ignoring y'all. I'm just having some difficulties with adding people to the stage. So if you did have something to add, please raise it again so that I can connect you. So, and while we wait for you, Akoti Maria, go ahead.
Peace, greetings. That was such a good point. Greetings, Chief Julia. Thank you for being in space. Thank you, Sister Yaffe, for leading the charge. So that was such a good point that Margie Marie made. We do, that we do make that excuse. And we make that excuse when people make that excuse because, it's like an attempt to pacify the ego. So
Yeah.
don't feel better about being and remaining undeveloped. And Chief has a whole series on
The undeveloped person.
just undeveloped, yes. And I think it's important to revisit it and like look into self, like looking at how we're undeveloped. But as you were sharing the story, in addition to that, as you were sharing the story, I kept thinking about the fear and panic, and how easily that spreads. And I know you spoke a little bit about it, so I won't belabor the point, but it's important that we carry ourselves knowing that we're called by the name of the Most High. And when we do that, then there's adversity around, but that's that being swallowed up by the tumultuous waters and all of the unstable experiences around us, that it's easy to get swallowed up when we kind of shift into fear. But if we're moving off of faith and we constantly know, everything that's happening is not necessarily an attack, because the truth is that puts us back into what? Victim mode. Like right back. So we could call it sabotage, self-sabotage, but it always places us back into that victim mentality, and then you don't have to be responsible for the outcome of your journey and your life. And that's not how we move as a move. We move with that faith and knowing that, I think about resistance training too. Like when you do resistance training, was that an example I brought up earlier?
Yes, I think Zach talked about like going to the gym. Maybe that's the one you're thinking about. It was several midday affirmatives ago. Several midday affirmatives ago.
So that's just the example. Creeping back up because all I can think about is when you do resistance training, it's that constant stretching, whether you're using a resistance band. I'm not a resistance trainer, so I can't go into the details, but it's like it helps to build muscle, right? It's that tension, right, and that friction always helps to make the other strong or stronger. So it's impossible to see how our lives could just remain all smooth sailing and we actually grow from that. Like that's impossible. I mean, I also think about just the idea of a seed pushing through. A seed pushing through and becoming a sprout. I know it seems so simplistic, but I don't know, nature makes me pause and awe so much because it gives us examples of how we ought to push through, in many ways.
Yeah,
this is what I wanted to share. There's a lot that you're sharing about Joe too, and I wanted to get in a little bit more, but I'll pause and give someone else.
No, go ahead. I don't think there is anyone else. Give thanks for the cycles, the undeveloped person stuck in cycles. Give thanks. That's in the YouTube chat. No, go ahead. What you wanted to share about Job? Because we in the sharing section now. So there's not much more that I'm gonna go back to. So now we are in our open build session of the build of the midday affirmative.
So I think earlier someone mentioned that Job is an old story that's like always shared in church.
Yeah.
I'd say like from my times in church, I remember I have never forgotten that one verse that his wife said to him, that one phrase, curse God and die.
Mm-hmm.
I never forget it, and I never forget it because I'm like, you're willing to encourage this person to actually sacrifice all of what they worked for. And I'm not talking about physical riches and all that he attained, but actually his perfect relation or his perfect walk. That you were so willing to say, yeah, curse God and die because he lost all of his estate, as opposed to offering something more, right? That's all that you could have done was say this. And even in that, his response to her was, like, you foolish woman. You foolish, to eat that, because the blessing of family and even the blessing of the relationship, again, that he built up from being obedient and being considered perfect, that is more valuable than the estate he had.
Yeah.
He knew that, even though we see him,
he goes through it. Yeah.
That time, right? I can't remember which was it. Was it chapter 10 when he was speaking about bitterness? I know you.
Yes. We got to slide on bitterness.
There's another chapter where he kind of said, "This curse the day I was born, curse the night I was even a man child was even conceived." I was like, "Oh, that's deep, that's serious." But he never cursed the name of Yah.
Never.
And that was always profound. That was always profound to me. In his story, and it's like it is an example. It's an example for us to walk in that type of strength, even through this time of Ramadan. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Old story.
It is.
But still.
Yeah. All right. I don't think I see another hand. I mean, I don't know. Brother Mayuba, what a story. Oh, good thing. Yeah, well, it's funny, but I mean, there's just parts of it that's still funny because I was just a whole fool running around in the streets of New York. But it's a lesson learned. It can be a lesson for others. Like, be aware of the trauma that you spread. And even be aware, like kind of pulling from what Achoti Maria just shared, like be aware of how we internalize it, right? And then focus on what's more important, you know, for you to gain? What is the more important part of the lesson for you to gain, and what you should be walking away with? You know, the riches and the stuff is not important. It's your soul. That's what's more important. Will you be able to grab onto the chain or jump up? Not grab on. Will you be able to? Will you be fit and light enough? Because you're not carrying any excess. You're not carrying unnecessary sticks and straw, you know, in your satchels, you know, and wherever else, you know, for you to jump up onto the chain and be out, right? And that time might be sooner rather than later, as we have discussed on our uh, study sessions, motherships and stuff, and spy balloons, right? So, are you ready? Are you prepared? Are you ready? So I don't think I see any more. Oh, you did, but it seems it doesn't register on your side. Okay, so brother Mayuba, try again. Try again. Maybe go out of the room and come back, and then raise your hand, and then we'll see if it clicks over. And while we wait for you to do that, I'm gonna go to the chat. Um, and also like our producer, Kuya is gonna say something. She has something to add, so I'm gonna add her to the stream right now, and she can share her piece. And while we wait for you, Aki, Mayuba.
Peace, peace. How's everyone? I wanted to speak earlier when we were just talking about sabotage, sabotaging ourselves, or those external things that happen. And going back to the story of David, but really focusing on Saul and how he missed his opportunity. Well, he didn't miss it. He was anointed to be king, but how was his disobedience? Now, he was crowned to be. It went frozen. Am I here? Am I here?
You may have a lot of devices on. It's you're very fuzzy, and it is like breaking up a little bit.
Oh. Okay, I don't know what to do. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we can hear you.
I'll come back. I'll come back.
No, we can hear you now. It's fine. Just go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, the point I was wanting to make is that we miss our opportunity. We miss our opportunities because of external things and internal things. And what I was kind of thinking about Saul was internally, once becoming king, there was something within him that, caused him to move in disobedience, right? And so through his disobedience, and he was disobedient, he did some things that were pretty foolish twice. One with the Philistines, and then and Samuel had to come and talk to him and say, "What are you doing? What is this foolish thing that you're doing?" And then another time when he was disobedient in instructions when he was to take out the, what are they called? Amalekites. And he spared the king. I don't either. I don't know how to pronounce it. And he said
to me, I don't know. I cannot keep them straight.
Right. Well, he spared the king and spared the good of the spoils and destroyed the rest. But he sabotaged himself, because of what he thought, the most I would honor. So and I think that was more internal, in that manner. But that's something that I wanted to share, that sometimes there are missed opportunities, whether it be or internal, and how we perceive things, which can cause us to lose out on opportunities. So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah. Give thanks. I have another one, but I'm gonna open it. Brother Mayuba's on the stage, so go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yes. Peace, everyone. I definitely enjoyed the story of spreading the fear through the train and running around. was quite the story. I would say that I relate with that, but not through holding fear and spreading fear, but sometimes if you have ignorance through too much confidence in something, and then people believing that that's possible to be done as well, and then the outcome not faring so well for everyone. And I had a similar story where we were camping with a group of people, and we didn't have all the materials. Our tent had problems, and we didn't have all the stakes or the waterproof materials. But somehow I convinced my tent mate that we'd be fine, and we built a solid structure. That night, it was a downpour rainfall, and we're both in there soaking wet, and wrongfully him believing in that, also that confidence that we're going to be fine, can also spread disaster, right? And that's a very small scale of that, but that definitely can grow in magnitude in whether it's in wars, whether it's in conflicts, and masses can be moved to do something where they feel confident and fortified at ease, and then unbeknownst to them, it's creating a chaotic nature about that. So that's what your story reminded me of. Yeah.
Good things. Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is like there has to be like a balance, right? Like even if you are confident, it's like, all right, but be mindful. And I think even Kira even said it earlier, it's like that application, like be mindful of what it is, and how it might affect people. Like you can be like that overly confident, but then are you reading the room and seeing like whether those people that you're spreading it to can also take that level or not, you know? Yeah.
Definitely. And even in when you're in situations where I've met times where people are in the streets and they're almost going to fight, but if the team isn't collectively aligned with the movement, that false confidence can end up really bad for the group. If situations happen and move other ways.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing. It's like, why would it be false confidence? You know, it's like maybe because it is covering up fear that's really there. I don't know. That's what I would think. Anybody want to share thoughts on that? No? Yes?
No, I wouldn't say false confidence. I would say it's confidence, but through ignorance. Right? Yeah, that's how I would position that is.
I see.
Fully confident, but you're totally ignorant that this is not going to go the way you think it's going to go, my friend. It's going to be a different kind of situation.
I see. Yeah. Well, you know what? That goes back to the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, right? It means you didn't have full knowledge of a thing. So like when you try to wisdom it, like you didn't even get the fullness of it was. So like you're not gonna get to the next part of the equation, and then the outcome is not gonna be understanding. It's gonna be whatever it is that you produce from not getting all the information.
Yeah, exactly.
Give thanks for that. Sovereignty says we need economy though, so that's important, but it doesn't outweigh obedience, right? It never does. Like we all have, there's obedience, and the hierarchy is important. Elohim, man, junior man, woman, junior woman, and children, and everybody else. Oh, and everybody is obedient in their place. Everyone. They have to be. Aquia says, I wonder if that would be foolish faith. I don't know. Can you explain foolish faith? You want to come back and explain foolish? I don't know. That's an interesting question. Point. Maybe keep the camera off and it'll be better.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, that was just a question to what Mayuba was speaking of. You know, he said that there was a confidence that, you know, we're moving in. So I'm like, well, I wonder if that was, sometimes people move in this thing of knowing, but it could be foolish because you don't have, all the information that you need or all the components needed. So it was really a question. And that's it.
Okay. Good. Thanks for the question. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe, and maybe because I'm focusing on like foolish faith, but it's like maybe it's like what we have faith in. I guess it would like, are you being foolish in what you choose to have faith in? Which is if you are an Israelite, if you are Hebrew, would be wicked. Like you're going against what your nature should be, which is having faith and being reverent in Yah. I mean, but if your L is something else, then do what you do, baby. You do what you do, right? So maybe the answer, the approach is like being concerned with like what our people are supposed to have faith in, and understanding that other people are gonna be moving on another frequency. I know that could be totally wrong, but that's my input. That's my brick. That's my brick. All right. So I'm gonna, just to like, sum up like what we discussed here. Give thanks everybody for contributing to the build. It really was like a flow like of stories today. Yes, LOL. It was really a flow of stories. So like I think it's like, understanding and knowing like everything has a season. These cycles are important and we're supposed to move through them, not get caught up in a spinning, where we're not progressing through each term, right? Our perception of what is presented to us, whether it's internal or external, is key because it dictates what our response will be, and that response is going to dictate how we come out on the other side, how we move through, or how we stay stuck. And so with that, it brings us to like a lot of the times how our responses or response can be fear, based on not having all pieces of the equation. So our affirmation for you this strong is to affirm faith, not fear. Don't pass along trauma to others. Be mindful of whatever that external sabotage thing is, may not be sabotage, it's a test. Or view it all as a test. View everything as a test and respond appropriately. Don't get stuck in the victim mode. That's not what we're supposed to do. Grow, move forward. So give thanks everyone for joining us. Just as always, a reminder, we have the retreat coming up. So make sure that you are going to, and I see some of y'all on these chats, but I have not seen any signups, any registrations. So make sure you can, if you're watching this afterwards, for those of you who are watching, you can click the QR code or snap or whatever they call it, the QR code, and it'll take you right to the registration form. Or you can just go to the ANU website, www.anulifeglobal.org, and you can click on the first image, and that will take you directly to the sign-up sheet. And we're going to NOLA in the light. When it comes for light, when it's the light time, we will be in NOLA, actually like right at the cusp of the summer solstice. So make sure you check out the website. We always have a lot of fun. It's a place where we get to have these conversations and have these builds in person. So it's really key that you have the you figure out a way to like join in those opportunities, especially for those of you who watch the videos and really enjoy the content, whether it is cheap. I know y'all enjoy cheap way better than the rest of us, but whether it's cheap, or Achoti Yaffe or myself or Emu Yakira Eden or Aki Zach, bringing the fire and not spitting lukewarm, you know, whatever it is, you know, we get to have these conversations with each other and build and grow and learn and are closer together and all the better therefore. So make sure you know, register and sign up for the retreat because it'll be a lot of fun. And I will see all of you next Strong, where we talk about the cycle through light. So give thanks for all of you for joining. Give thanks for all of you on Clubhouse. Akizak, Achoti Amina, Sherla, Mayuba, Achoti Maria, Amy Akira Eden, Naya, Ima Akuya, give thanks for behind the scenes. I know it's a little bit chaotic because it was motorboat talk today. And always, as always, give thanks to Chief Yuya for providing this space and, you know, letting us flow. And I will that all of you are able to take away from this conversation. Remember, we affirm faith, not fear. Take that affirmation with you all through the Strong. And we will see you after the next 6. Peace.